Every news station has moved to the
Oh,
right.
CNN did make a move towards the right, and also Jeff Bezos owns the Washington
You've
Post.
proven my point.
And then
There has been a surgence of National Socialist networks popped up, which has started like doing neo-Nazi demonstrations, which is like kind of just settling a little.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, I have no love for people that identify like that. What I would say about it, though, is what happens is when you play sort of identity politics games with one side, inevitably the other side's going to play as well. And so what happens is you could look at it like through the perspective of like minorities in the United States. You could even look at it through the perspective of like the ADL and sort of issues that groups that claim to speak up for Jewish people have been pushing for many years. And what happens is I think that there is a lot of truth to what these groups are saying when it comes to perceived power that people that are connected to Israel have. And so you could say something like, well, it tends to be that a lot of people in Hollywood are Jewish. It tends to be that a lot of people in the banking industry are Jewish. Now, what does that mean to me? Like, okay, well, what's the reason for that? So, for example, as a right-winger, when someone says to me something like this, well, how about the fact that blacks are incarcerated or are far more than whites? That could be racism, but maybe not. Maybe there are reasons. Maybe there are cultural reasons.
That wasn't necessarily the angle I was going here, by the way.
Okay, well, let me finish up real quick then, and then I'll get back. So give me like 20 seconds. So then by the same metric, I would say the same. If you just notice that there are Jewish people in positions of power, well, what's the reason? Why are they there? I think there is legitimate criticism to be made about the nation of Israel and the amount of influence they have in the United States. And I think that oftentimes people get radicalized because they feel like they can't make those legitimate criticism. And so when there's another group there that says, see, we told you, it's this big nefarious conspiracy, that's the direction that it goes down.
So the whole Jewish stuff isn't necessarily an issue here because most of the people in terms of historically being in charge and in positions of wealth in Australia have been white Catholics. For example, Murdoch is one that you may be very aware of. Controls, I think, was a set. Australia's media is, I believe, as if not more single entity owned than the CCP.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so the point, are you trying to get to that there's a rise in sort of these groups in Australia as well?
Yeah, there's a rise. There was an article. I need to look into this. I can send you it once I find it if you want. Talking about how the basically what they're finding is that it's stemming from multiple kind of online influencer accounts, which are being let out. This isn't the whole like, oh, Joe Rogan, the Manosphere type thing. It was talking more in terms of like the Twitter sphere.
The problem is, I think the reason that you see people like that have influence is because those voices have been shut out for so long. And it's not just that. More importantly than that is the voices that have been the traditional ones that are deemed acceptable are pushing a view that is antithetical to what a lot of people believe and not taking their issues seriously. And so what happens is, like, from the perspective of white men, like, you get laughed out if you want to talk about issues that affect white men. What are you talking about? You're privileged. It's everywhere. I assume that's the case in Australia as well. The media is probably dominated with that. I would assume
media
that the
centrist right over here.
I don't believe that. I believe I've heard people.
Most all printed media, excluding a couple of circumstances, are owned solely by News Corp, which is already putting it into that centrist right position.
Even if it was true with the printed media, I bet that the media, particularly like televised media,
TV wise, there's only 1 to 2 who you consider left-wing centrist.
Yeah, I thought that was well known.
I hear these similar claims in the United States. But let me ask you this: do you think the media is dominated by the left or the right in the United States?
Oh, definitely the left.
In the United States, I don't have enough of a knowledge about it.
You think it's the right? I would say it's the left. Well, it depends on what you mean by right.
It was the left 10 years ago. Every news station has moved to the
right.
right.
CNN did make a move towards the right, and also Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post.
Proven my point.
And the New York Times. All these people are moving to the right.
Well, hold on. Rob, you said to prove your point, but can you contend against what we're saying?
Yes, there's certainly
no. In general, I think he's wrong, but I don't care about that. I'm trying to remember 2 other questions I have.
It's certainly that the New York Times is not right wing. It is certain that the CNN is not right wing.
They are.
Well,
They're not, and
it also
that-
depends
let me,
what you
please,
mean.
Let me finish. Like, and it is such a ridiculous claim from my perspective that to have you say that and say, and it's the same in Australia. These organizations are right
No,
wingers
no.
like CNN,
Australia's
and the New York
different.
Times is
People.
laughable.
People.
It's laughable to me.
No. The other
We
guys.
don't have the New York Times here. We don't have
The other
CNN.
guy disagreed with me.
Australia is a different point.
Yeah.
But like I said, it depends on what you mean by right or what the gay menace is saying is right. At the very least, the whole notion of like, we keep the status quo, we keep the capitalist in power, this, that, and the other, which is a right wing sort of ideology. That's been America for forever.
Is there a
you want to talk about?
Let me ask you this: do you believe that there is a serious quote left wing in the United States, or would you say like basically the Democrats are also right wing?
Yeah, the Democrats are left wing. The Democrats are 100%.
They're centrist left.
Yeah.
You think? Yeah, I think they're socialists.
No, I don't think they're socialists.
No, they're not socialists.
Are they anti-capitalist?
And that's also the thing, like complete socialism within itself, spectrum a bit, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, the Democrats are definitely left. I don't have like a hyper like. I'm not saying that if you believe in capitalism, you're a right wing network. Like legitimately,
Yeah,
CNN,
it's like I exist.
Yeah,
I exist.
sure. CNN, New York Times, MSNBC, like they go quite soft on Trump compared to how they went on.
I mean, it's just absurd. If that's how you're going to define it, that they're wait, your argument is CNN, New York Times, and MSNBC are softer on Trump than Biden?
Yeah, for sure.
You're not living in reality.
I am.
That's so laughable. It's so laughable.
I'll talk to you later about this when I can look up examples. But it's actually true.
It is not in the realm.
It sounds like you haven't listened to these places.
No, I certainly have.
Since 2016, and a lot of people haven't. Like, there's this cultural knowledge.
That's not true. I watch clips all the time. Admittedly, I don't have cable. But yes, that's right. So, for example, give me Rachel Maddow, pro-Trump.
No, I'm not saying they're pro-Trump. God, no.
Okay, so Rachel Maddow was harder on Joe Biden than she is Donald Trump.
No, Rachel Maddow is on the left-wing offerings on MSNBC.
Okay, Jake Tapper.
More left-wing. Fuck, I can't remember. I can't remember names right now. Like I
give
said,
me like what program am I tuning in on CNN? What writer am I looking at the New York Times or on MSNBC that is softer on Donald Trump than they were Joe Biden?
Yeah, look, I can send you the names I said earlier. I'm not.
I would be happy to have this discussion. I think that it's laughable on its face. It really is. And it's one of those.
I really don't think it is.
Scott Adams talks about this, like that we're watching two different movies. We're watching the same facts in front of us, and we're so different. It's constant a source of frustration of me. I'm not attacking you or saying you're bad people or anything, but I don't know how I can have a conversation with someone that looks at a platform like MSNBC and says, "Yeah, they're way easier on Trump than they were on Biden." That's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Wait, stop. Two things. First of all, I need to ask two questions because I got to go after this. Second of all, I want to say one more thing about the news thing. Which do you want me to do first? The questions.
I have a time frame here too, so go ahead, whatever order you want.
Okay. So the questions. Do you have a legal opinion on Donald Trump's 14th Amendment birthright citizenship executive order?
I would have to look at the legality of it, but I think that there is a claim to be made that it had to do with slavery was the intent of it, and to say that the freed slaves would be allowed to be citizens. I think that regardless of the legal aspect of it, it's certainly something that we should revoke.
Okay, sweet. So then the next question is, where do you stand? Do you have a legal opinion on whether or not illegal immigrants have rights under the Constitution?
Yeah, of course they have rights. Everyone in the world has rights. The extent of what those rights are vastly different. Do you have a legal opinion on the Supreme Court ruling that deportation is not a punishment?
Yeah, I think that's dumb, but that's
what the court ruled.
What was the ruling?
Real quick,
what the fuck?
Deportation is not a punishment. The Supreme Court's ruled that. The other question I have for you then is, what due process do you have as an illegal when it comes to deportations? What's the level of due process do you feel that people are entitled to?
It depends on a million things.
It's true.
If you've been here for like 2 decades, like for certain you deserve a full trial.
Well, it's not about deserve, it's about what the law says that you have. And the truth is,
the law usually would give them a full trial.
That's not necessarily true. And what I'm saying is the term,
they wouldn't
what
give them
you'll
a full
see is
trial if
people
they were
will say
caught
things like,
on the
these
border.
people deserve due process, but due process isn't a universal thing. Due process for different levels of crimes, different levels of offenses, etc., could be different in different prospects. That's certainly true.
That's true. Yeah, no, I'm not debating that.
But someone said what? Like, I mean, that's self-evidently true.
Yeah, that's.
I thought you were saying that like they didn't deserve like due process depending on the crime.
No, that's not what I'm saying. There's always
Yeah.
a
Okay.
default level
Yeah.
of due process. The
Sure.
question is, what does that due process look like? And the due
Sure.
process for deportations is far lower in a legal standard than it would be like for
Depending on
being
the
thrown into
circumstance.
jail for a crime.
Depending on the circumstance. But
Well, I don't think that there's
Um,
differentiation in the law that I see. I point to the law that suggests that. If you're an illegal and you've been here for 20
yeah, we
years,
can
that
do
you
that.
get
We can do
different
that.
due
I
process.
can do that.
I don't think
Yeah,
that's
I can-
true,
I
but
can-
I'm
I can
willing to
send
be
that to you.
proven wrong.
Sure. I'll ask someone who did the immigration clinic at my school. The final thing I want to say on the news thing, right? The news media are writing headlines. My basic claim is the news media are writing headlines that are just about as negative about Trump as they were about Biden, and Trump is doing things that are far, 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 far worse.
That's your
I would-
opinion. Like, and they're not writing two things. One, it's
In
your
like a-
opinion that they're
in like a
worse.
semi-objective way.
That it's not objective. It's your opinion that they're worse because he's doing things that you
Well.
personally don't like, right? And secondly, you're just wrong that there is a comparative that they're about the same level of negativity. The media
No,
stood back in silence as Joe Biden was a human vegetable, and they basically had no
Mm-hmm.
access to him, and they basically allowed that narrative, despite the evidence that all Americans could see. They let
Are
it
you
go.
kidding?
The New York Times did, the MSNBC did,
kidding?
CNN did. Yes, they did. They hardly made it a
No,
point.
they
Once in a
didn't.
blue moon,
No,
they would write
they
one
talked about it
article.
forever.
That's
That
not
was
true.
like a major thing they
Whoa.
talked about for several months.
Actually,
but
that
it
is
That's
was
not
true.
true. That
They
it's
were 100% talking about
what,
it.
you,
In
what you're
fact,
saying is
they talked about that too much relative to the evidence to support it.
they certainly didn't talk about it too much. And what you'll see is
They
when you
did.
go back and you look at the reporting, it'll say things like this. Age is one of the concerns of Biden, and he has had some medical stumbles.
Yeah.
And so his team's trying to push back against that. That's different than being like, this dude, there are people, let me finish. There are people behind this. Now we have Jake Tapper writing his book. All of it comes out now. All these staffers, people behind the scenes are saying, my goodness, this guy was so infirmed. Now they're admitting, we thought it was weird that we basically had no access to this guy, unlike other presidents that we had. They could have been reporting all of that at the time. They chose not to.
So
That's
I mean,
probably because the
if
limited
every time they
access that
mentioned
had,
Joe
they didn't
Biden,
want to lose as well.
there was a solid several month streak where every single time they mentioned Joe Biden in an article in the New York Times, because at the time I was reading the New York Times every day, I would read a bunch of it. Every time they mentioned him, they would always bring up the concerns about his age. They even in things that didn't matter. Like I remember reading an article about a trip that he took where no incidents occurred. And it was talking mostly about like the situation the country is in. And then at the end, it's like, and Joe Biden visited the country. There have been recent concerns about Joe Biden's health and age. And it's like, this has nothing to do with what
That's
was being
different.
talked about.
That's different. Saying one, I don't think that was in every article, but let's assume
That
that it
wasn't.
was. That's different than the framing that is. People say Republicans are concerned about his age is different than saying, here's a bunch of stuff that show that this story is actually true. They're just reporting Republicans pounce. That's their report. That's not the same as what they do with Donald Trump, where they literally are making articles that are concluding how bad he is. And how all of these, they gave themselves Pulitzer Prizes in pushing the Russia hoax story. That's how desperate they were to go after Trump. They refused to cover. They refused to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story.
I've kept you way too long, my man. You should,
all right.
You should
all right.
step
Well,
up.
hey, if you guys ever want to talk, go ahead and DM me.